I feel like when you make videos like this, you only really get so many big takes. You get your favourite thing in there somewhere, and if you're lucky, then maybe your best thing too. I guess it's time I get around to that one whilst I still can. It has been a hot minute since I last talked about a video game. I know I probably won't even do it justice. Hell, did I even do a good job the last 2 times I talked about games I love with all my heart? I don't know. I just know that it's time to get this one out of me. Celeste is the best video game I have ever played. I don't exactly shy away from celebrating the games that I love. I mean, my poor boss has to listen to me talk about Zelda way more than he probably wants to. There's many that I love, but only an elite few have managed to somehow recontextualize everything and never leave my thoughts. Back in 2018, an extremely competitive year for video games, I admittedly had pretty minimal emotional investment going into Celeste. However, somewhere on that climb, something clicked. Stepping into the shoes of a young woman named Madeline, your job is to get walking, get climbing, jumping and dashing until you reach the peak of the titular Celeste Mountain. The mountain itself has enough external and internal opposition to throw you straight back to the bottom, but you persevere through this stunningly crafted, emotionally complex 2D puzzle platformer. Developed by Maddie Thorson at Extremely OK Games, Celeste was a Game of the Year nominee, is one of the big faces of the indie gaming scene, and is one of the most popular games for speedrunning of all time. However, after almost a year of personally selling games to people on a daily basis, I've not had one conversation with anyone who knows or has played it. There's really not a great deal I can feasibly add this deep into a conversation about the game, but at a time where the game is finally becoming widely available again, at least here in the UK, I am desperate to convince you to try and finish the climb. Celeste is honestly the kind of art where I just throw caution to the wind on how you choose to consume it. Play the game, enjoy the soundtrack, watch videos of it online. The benefit of this experience is that worthwhile that I don't want you to miss it. I really am not brave enough to definitively state on the internet that this is the best video game ever made. Nobody is going to be on board if I try that. This is just a case where I owe Celeste a video. A love letter. Some more of my time. I mentioned the year that Celeste released because I think it's noteworthy that for all of the video games that left their marks in that year, Celeste is kind of the only one that I can point to and say, "Look Dad, that's a video game!" Not every single new release has to achieve this specific feeling, but I do value the few games that release today that never seem to waver when it comes to being a game first and foremost. Yeah, true, that is what a puzzle platformer was pretty much born to communicate, but the feeling still matters to me, damn it. There are hard games, and then there's humbling ones like Celeste, the kind that makes you question if you ever have been good at video games. Despite the significance of the story, which we will be getting to, we first need to take a look at that gameplay-first design philosophy that Celeste does as well as Nintendo, or From Software. I am a real snob when it comes to how characters should feel in platformers, because I was literally raised on these things. Yeah, I'm not quite ready to teach a class on what makes them feel exactly right, but I've been around long enough to give my approval to the absolute masterclass in responsive precision that is Celeste. The dash traversal mechanic requires you to reach a point where you have mastered using that thing to decimate obstacles put before you, or at least be able to pinpoint your own personal map through the course, as flawed or slapdash as it might ultimately be. Each chapter is composed of linear gauntlets that, just like the best of Mario's outings, offer constant new minute additions. Nothing ever revolutionizes what you're doing from the outset of the first chapter, but the consistent variety never lets any of it feel repetitive. You'll be spending certain courses punishingly working to the point where you're gasping for breath, thinking, damn, I barely touched the ground in that level. But only if you're doing it on purpose will it ever feel like you did it in the same way twice. My own silent submission to the game's physical draining of me being something that I will gladly offer, with a smile on my face when I think about the score accompanying the climb. Composer Lena Raine delivered a game soundtrack that I have listened to obsessively for years. Honestly, her piano, synth, and violin work can only really be done justice by actually experiencing it. Her work guarantees that one day her name will draw the kind of attention that Akira Yamaoka or Grant Kirkhope does. The music goes from this stunningly serene blend of mystery and atmosphere to a reactionary, encouraging beat. It follows my progression, developing layers as I and Madeline improve together. When I tune into it, the sound can throw me into a flow, or straight out of it. The stress of it makes me feel like I just can't stand still. So I rush forward, the beat only calming when I just breathe, and I find my way through it. There really would be no Celeste without this score, and I really cannot picture a time where I won't need it in my life. The game itself is not exactly very original. It's tropey, and it's definitely wearing its influences on its sleeve. But that's okay. You can look at the art style or the formulas it's adopted and perhaps call them derivative, but I am totally on board if what you're building upon is elaborating or innovating in a way that does something new with what's come before. The 2D pixel art doesn't focus on being fresh or possessing as much fidelity as possible, but is instead constructed like most other elements across the game in service of putting us in the headspace of Madeline. The charming expressions and the background work conveying emotion and altering tone and feeling with its design, being all that I personally need to buy into a style that most consider to be pretty dried up. The courses and the levels, except for the specific story beats that need to pack a bit more of a punch, are designed to be short, challenging bursts. This climb will not be easy, but it's not planned to be insurmountable. It's a strange paradox that this experience, as frustrating as it can be across the thousands of deaths, can be kind of also serene. Because when you're playing, you feel like you're in such safe hands. Celeste perfectly manages introductions and escalations. Building blocks are laid down appropriately before you're ever asked to get creative with them. You get chances to look ahead at the full expanse of the course, and you just throw down your controller thinking you'll never overcome what's ahead of you. But because there's such a cohesiveness to the design, and Madeline truly couldn't feel better to control, your deaths or failures never come across as the game's fault, which is a really tricky feeling to truly nail. Also, you start to feel like you're just scratching the surface of what could be done with some of this. You can quite literally taste the time that's gone into this from the team at Extremely OK Games. What you're actually playing clearly having been iterated on until it gets as close to perfection as possible. It resembles Nintendo taking an extra year to make Tears of the Kingdom bug-free, Celeste having been clearly playtested as much as possible, constantly refined by what could be gleaned from different players' experiences. A personal mark of game design that truly works in my book being that I'm incredibly depressed that this came out when it did. If Celeste had dropped 10 or 15 years earlier, this would have been a game that we would spend all of our days on the playground discussing. The absolutely infectious energy of developing techniques, theorizing over secrets, as well as a cheeky bit of competition, would have been as nostalgic as our memories of Pokemon from when we were younger. That's a feeling that I don't unfortunately get to experience in person, but that I still feel anytime I engage with Celeste online. Besides it having one of the most positive communities to ever grace the internet, and fully supported fan games available like Strawberry Jam, that, believe me, I'm really looking forward to jumping into once I finish production on this video. The really interesting thing about exploring Celeste online is that it can lead you to actual athletes. Something that really is underappreciated is the sport of Celeste. The developers went out of their way to make room in the base game to accommodate people trying to play this game as quickly as possible, even incorporating those same tricks that they'd have to use into the game's final levels. And players went absolutely nuts with it. Celeste has over 30,000 individual attempts to speedrun this game, to be the fastest person to finish it, and when watching different attempts you can feel the burning hot grind of the masters honing every millisecond to work in their favour. They make a climb of their own, daring to try it when their own skill can be reflected in the game and try to kill them as quickly as they can pass through it. I have beaten this game, I've had my share of hell, but to those of you who have beaten this game in 40 or 26 minutes? I mean this in the best possible way, but you are inhuman to me. What you do with your hands is not real. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't even make any sense!
Okay. Time to take a step back. Time to just breathe. Something that some of you will already be aware of, and something that some of you might be delighted to discover, is that Celeste is a beautifully queer story. It's genuinely one of my favourites of its kind, because the imagery and intent is so strikingly obvious, even though it wasn't initially intentional. Director Maddie Thorson came out as trans after production on the game had already finished, and therefore could only recognise who Madeline also was, and what the story had been doing, after the fact. Therefore, the game both before and after, not unlike Infinity Train or Spider-Verse, possesses imagery that will matter to the queer people playing. It's a story that you can interpret as metaphor, or literal, in an arc that is beautiful to watch unfold. Celeste is best known and celebrated as a perfect portrait of the chasm-like abyss that anxiety and trauma can feel like. It really speaks to those who have experienced it, and it could just be the perfect means to learn more about it if it's something that you find difficult to talk about. All of this comes down not to Madeline, but her worst parts, her other self, a person we all know now as a dark reflection, as Badeline. Madeline manifests a sentient reflection that from the outset comes to beat her and us down, an antagonist in play that isn't the mountain throwing opposition at us, but we becoming our own worst enemy. Madeline doesn't even really care about mountain climbing. This game just as easily could have been learning to fly a plane or power washing something. This was just some chance that she took because it might just help in some small way. It's the same as trying to learn guitar or making video essays on YouTube when you feel a little bit lost. Because what else are you doing with your life right now if not this? Badeline is there pushing back against even the smallest thing we have right now because that question is just too damn nagging. She is this deep, nebulous, conflicting part of yourself that may no longer have a name, that's only easy to identify if you reduce it to something like an evil clone. She's every doubt that we just want to cut out, that will only ever come back to take a new, more aggressive shape. She's my hair, exams, my sexuality, my weight, food, everyone that I can't talk to anymore because of my choices. This is on paper just the climb of a mountain, but the climb is recognizing that those supposed bad parts might just be integral to making it to the summit. Recognizing that your faults, your flaws, everything bad that has happened to you is integral to the sum total of yourself. There really can be no good without the bad. Those sides are going to clash, but in the end they're gonna have to find a way to coexist, to find a way to work it out. Those days, the moments, the hurt, it's not going anywhere. Until you accept that, you're just going to cost yourself progress. I'm really sorry because the fact does suck, but we really cannot outrun our own reflections. The developers in the game aren't saying that what's hurt you doesn't matter, that it can just be gotten over, but that without it, you wouldn't be who you are. And we promise that despite what you might think, you are really damn cool. You don't need to love yourself, but if you accept even some small part of yourself, then you will do incredible things. I've seen very few moments where gameplay and story successfully combine in any game, where they run completely parallel to complement what both are attempting. Madeline and Badeline's reconciliation, and access to the Double Dash being a literal game-changing personal and technical development that I've never seen another game pull off quite like this. The only other games that have achieved a symbiosis like this, a true link between gameplay and player interaction, coming from these really dark places of nihilism. Yes, a lot of that darkness is here too, but you still get to see a place where that gets worked through. Accepted. Madeline moving forward as her best self. The true icing on the cake of everything that we've discussed. The reason that I would label Celeste as beautiful being that when Celeste won Best Independent Game at the Game Awards, the team took the opportunity to give us this message.
There is one thing I want to say though. If Celeste has helped you come to terms with mental illness, I just want to say that you deserve credit for that. That change came from inside of you, and you're capable of a lot more. Thank you.
When I think about those moments in art that have in some way defined a small piece of who I am, I maybe value this one the most for trying to give me something that I think I can go back to every day. The message they offered was one that, yeah, come on, of course I'm gonna doubt going forward, but it's also one that I can continue to work on. Because no matter what happens, that mountain is still going to be there for me to return to. I've been doing it every year since 2018, and I look forward to a time where someday maybe I don't need to play this game again. I come to art with open arms. Good or bad, I surrender myself to the journey that they want to take me on, and I let it remind me not that games are art, but that the medium can and always will have value. Celeste leaves me with a soul-nourishing feeling of awe, the kind where I just can't get over the fact that I'm not the person who made this. But I want to say to all those involved, thank you for making it anyway. And to whoever tries to finish that climb next, good luck. Wow, that was one hell of a video. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I really hope that you enjoyed it. This was a really difficult video because I desperately wanted to do this game justice, and I've had so many thoughts for so many years about this experience, so I hope you got something out of it. Here in the UK, Celeste has recently gotten a new physical release, and I encourage as many of you as possible to try and pick up a copy whilst you still can. You may hate it, you may love it, but I promise you will get some small fraction of everything that I've just been talking about. I'm not too sure when the next video is going to be because life is getting super busy right now, but until then, take care of yourselves.